Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room. Bong. And today, yes, I have to fix this. Today we wrap up our Korngold survey. Yeah, it was fixed. Never mind. And we're not going to be talking about film music largely. We're going to be talking about other stuff. Or mostly other stuff. We're going to start with film and then work into his orchestral thing. So first, we have Robin Hood, the complete film score on Marco Polo. This is the largest yet compilation of all the music he wrote for that film, 78 minutes worth. That's a lot of music. And so, da-da-da-da-da, you know how that thing goes, right? And all that. Robin Hood, yeah, cool, super, wonderful. On Marco Polo, we've talked about that before, actually, and as part of my normal reviews. But now what we have to survey is the complete orchestral works on CPO. Another box that I've talked about, but I've had the originals, the original 4 discs here forever. I mean, literally just forever and ever and ever, because they were precious. So we begin with Volume 4, which has the symphony, the theme and variations, and Straussiana, with the Nordwestdeutsche Philharmonie under Werner Andreas Albert. These are good performances. They're good performances. They're well recorded, and you know you could do a lot worse. You really could. Then we've got, let's see, that was Volume 4. So Volume 3. Let's do Volume 3 next. That makes sense. Oh, the Baby Serenade. I love the Baby Serenade. I have to tell you about the Baby Serenade. He wrote this when his son George was born. And it is delicious. It has saxophones and, you know, it's incredibly well scored. But the overture, you know, baby's entry to the world, it's so much fun. I, at one point, was using classical music to do skating routines, Olympic skating routines, you know, for like major skaters. I did quite a few. And so I was, you know, editing classical music because it always drove me crazy that they always skated to the same crap. You know, it was always the 18th variation from Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody or Swan Lake or Carmen or something like that. So, you know, and there was so much more music. And those were in the days when the rules for music were very strict. Now there's no call for classical music, of course. They've vanquished it because they can do film scores and pop music and whatever they want to do. But in those days, you had very, very strict time limits within which you had to have a certain number of changes of mood for the long program and the short program. And it just so happened that the first movement of the Baby Serenade, this thing, in the ASV recording, this one's a little quicker, but it was the ASV recording, is exactly 4 minutes. You had like 10 seconds of, you know, leeway. It was exactly the right length for a figure skating long program. I didn't have to do anything to it. And it's fabulous because it's an A-B-A-B-A form, with B being sort of a foxtrot sort of thing. And you know, so you had the changes of mood and all the score. It was perfect, exactly as it was. And it ends with a pirouette. It begins with a pirouette, like that. No one wanted to do it. Nobody used it. Nobody cared. I knew it would never get chosen by any of these, you know, hotsy-totsy little pubettes who were zipping around on the ice. I just knew it. But they should have. The other piece they should have done that I thought was fabulous was Medea's Dance of Vengeance, which when it gets hopping is also exactly 4 minutes long in some performances. And would have been marvelous. Instead of doing, you know, little fairy princesses, they should do something like, you know, evil bitch who kills her own children. That would have been fun on ice. Don't you think? No, maybe not. All right. So then we have, so that was Volume 3. Oh, it's got the Baby Serenade, the Cello Concerto, and the Symphonic Serenade for strings. That's what's on there. These are all with Werner Andreas Albert, the Nordwestdeutsche Philharmonie, more or less. Then we've got Much Ado About Nothing, the orchestral suite, Sursum Corda, the overture, which is 18 minutes of symphonic mayhem. It's fabulous. And the Piano Concerto for the Left Hand with Stephen de Groot, excellent pianist. And Volume 1, Der Schneemann, the Prelude and Serenade, and the Entr'acte, and then the Schauspiel Overture and his Sinfonietta, which is a major work. It's as big as the symphony, and it really deserves to be played as such. So there's that. And then wrapping up this fantabulous thing here, we have two interesting discs. First, there's also Gerd Albrecht, A Midsummer Night's Dream. This was his first film music. He adapted Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream to a film by Max Reinhardt, and this is what got Korngold going into Hollywood. That was his first encounter. And so, it was the fact that he, did this, that he actually made his first Hollywood connections, and wound up there when in 1933, that's on CPO, yes, his opera, Die Catherine, his final opera, was canceled because it was 1933. It was not the best year to finish this thing. I mean, the Nazis tried to destroy it. I mean, oh gosh, it was a whole thing. I mean, the libretto was censored. It was a big mess. And it's an interesting opera, actually. It's got a scene in a jazz club with saxes and jazz instruments, and he was trying to be contemporary, within his own very romantic aesthetic. But in any case, the opera was not performed until much later, and not in Vienna, obviously. And this is its first recording. It's about a woman who's in love with a guy, and it's a love triangle. Let's just put it that way. It's a love triangle, and the guy who's trying to triangle, quadrangle actually, because there's this other guy who runs this jazz club, Shoo Shoo or whatever it's called, or Cha Cha, and his girlfriend who's furiously jealous, and so she shoots him and kills him, but Catherine thinks her boyfriend Francois did it, and Francois takes the blame because he thinks she did it, and she's pregnant, and it's very bittersweet. He goes off to jail. She's, waiting for him with the baby, and that's how it ends. That's the story. Good music, interesting music. Korngold, no one gives him any credit, you see. I mean, he was broadening his reach, his style somewhat, and then he was in Hollywood. And his whole life changed, and he vowed not to write any more concert music or anything until after the war. And that's exactly what happened. But then he died quite young. His son George died at exactly the same age. I think they were both just 50 or so, or was it 65? But they were the same age. No, they were 60. They were both 60, I believe. Anyway, there you have it. That's the end of Korngold. Very, very interesting guy. Deserves much more credit than he gets. So I hope, this will encourage you to go out and seek out some of his things and give them a listen. You won't be sorry. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.